day Daniel Whitmore decided to visit his maid's house, he thought he was going there to demand an explanation. He had no idea he was about to confront a truth that would change his life forever. Daniel Whitmore was known across the city as a self-made millionaire. At 38, he owned multiple real estate companies, drove a midnight black Bentley, and lived in a glass mansion that overlooked the ocean. People described him as disciplined, intelligent, and intimidating. Very few described him as kind. For 3 years, Maria Thompson had worked in his mansion as a housekeeper. She was quiet, punctual, and efficient. She never complained, never asked for favors, and never arrived late. To Daniel, she was reliable staff, nothing more, nothing less. So when Maria didn't show up on Monday morning, Daniel was annoyed. By Tuesday, he was irritated. By Wednesday, he was furious. She didn't even call, he muttered to his assistant, James Carter. Unprofessional. James hesitated. Sir, Maria has never missed a single day. Maybe something happened. Daniel waved him off. Everyone has excuses. But that night, as Daniel walked through his spotless but strangely empty house, he noticed something unsettling. The silence felt heavier. The place felt colder. For the first time, he realized Maria's presence had brought warmth he never acknowledged. On Thursday morning, instead of heading to the office, Daniel did something unexpected. He asked James for Maria's address. It was in a neighborhood Daniel had only seen through tinted car windows. Cracked sidewalks, faded houses, rusted gates. When his luxury car rolled down the narrow street, curious eyes followed. He stepped out, uncomfortable in his tailored suit, and approached a small, peeling blue house. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again, harder this time. The door slowly creaked open. Standing there was a little boy, maybe 8 years old, thin, pale, with tired eyes far older than his years. "Can I help you?" the boy asked softly. Daniel blinked. I'm looking for Maria Thompson." "That's my mom," the boy replied. "She's at the hospital." Something in the boy's voice made Daniel's chest tighten. "Hospital, why?" The boy hesitated before whispering, "My sister." Daniel followed the boy inside without fully realizing it. The house was small, 2 rooms, old furniture, a faint smell of medicine in the air. On a couch lay scattered children's drawings and a stack of unpaid bills. "What's your name?" Daniel asked. "Ethan." "And your sister?" "Grace." Ethan explained that Grace had a rare heart condition. Maria had been working double shifts for months, cleaning houses after finishing at Daniel's place. She hadn't missed work because she couldn't afford to. But 3 nights ago, Grace collapsed. Maria had rushed her to St. Luke's Hospital. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. "Why didn't your mother call me?" he asked quietly. Ethan gave a small, almost defensive shrug. "Mom says rich people don't like problems." The word struck Daniel harder than any insult ever had. He drove to St. Luke's Hospital immediately. In the pediatric wing, he found Maria sitting in a plastic chair outside a room, her face pale, eyes swollen from crying. She looked smaller somehow, fragile. When she saw Daniel walking toward her, her eyes widened in panic. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I was going to call, Daniel interrupted gently, something he had never done before. "Maria, why didn't you tell me?" Her composure broke. "I didn't want to lose my job," she whispered. "Grace needs surgery. It's expensive. I can't lose income." Daniel glanced through the small window into the hospital room. A tiny girl lay in the bed, wires connected to her fragile body. Machines beeped steadily. "How much?" Daniel asked. Maria looked confused. "Sir." "How much for the surgery?" She hesitated. "The full procedure and post-treatment, around $200,000. Daniel swallowed. For him, that was the price of a watch. For Maria, it was impossible. And suddenly, for the first time in years, Daniel felt ashamed. All his success, all his wealth, and yet the woman who cleaned his floors every morning had been silently fighting to save her daughter's life, alone. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He remembered his own childhood, growing up with a single mother who worked 2 jobs after his father died. He remembered hospital bills, the fear, the helplessness. Somewhere along the way, he had forgotten that feeling. The next morning, Daniel returned to the hospital, not as an employer but as something else. He met with the hospital administrator and covered the full cost of Grace's surgery anonymously. But when Maria found out, she knew. She confronted him in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. "Why would you do this?" she asked. Daniel struggled to answer. "Because I should have asked sooner," he said quietly. "Because I forgot what it feels like to struggle. Because no child should suffer when I have the power to help." Maria tried to protest, saying she would repay him. He shook his head. "This isn't a loan." The surgery was scheduled within the week. The days leading up to it were filled with anxiety. Maria barely ate. Ethan tried to be brave. Daniel found himself visiting every evening, bringing food, sitting with them, listening. For the first time, he wasn't giving orders. He was present. The surgery took 6 long hours. Maria clutched her rosary the entire time, whispering prayers. Daniel paced the hallway, his heart pounding as if Grace were his own child. When the surgeon finally stepped out with a small smile and said, "She's going to be okay," Maria collapsed into tears of relief. Daniel closed his eyes, overwhelmed. Grace recovered slowly but steadily. Color returned to her cheeks. Her laughter filled the hospital room. Weeks later, Maria returned to Daniel's mansion, but something had changed. Daniel no longer saw the maid. He saw a mother, a fighter, a woman of extraordinary strength. One afternoon, he called Maria into his office. She looked nervous. "I want to offer you something," Daniel said. Her face tensed. "A new position." She looked confused. "I'm establishing a foundation in my mother's name," Daniel explained. "It will support families who can't afford medical care for their children. I want you to help run it." Maria's eyes widened. "Me? You understand the struggle better than any executive I could hire." Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were different. They carried dignity. The foundation launched within months. It helped dozens of families in its first year. Daniel found himself more fulfilled than any business deal had ever made him. His company still grew, his wealth still multiplied, but his heart, once guarded and distant, had softened. One evening, as Grace and Ethan ran across the mansion's garden during a small celebration event for the foundation, Daniel watched them laugh. Maria stood beside him. "You came to my house to scold me," she said gently. Daniel smiled faintly. "I came to demand an explanation." "And what did you find?" He looked at the children playing under the golden sunset. "I found what really matters. Life has a strange way of humbling even the most powerful people. Sometimes, the answers we seek aren't explanations, they're awakenings." Daniel had built an empire, but it took a missed day of work to rebuild his heart. And in the end, he learned that wealth isn't measured by what you own, but by how many lives you're willing to change when you finally choose to care.